I just realized that we did not go back to one of your truths, which was your marketing campaigns have yielded over $1 billion. I want to be sure that we get back to that because I just kind of skipped right over that. Okay, so you got to tell me about that.
Yeah, it's actually closer to, through my calculations, it's actually closer to 3 billion, but I just say 1 billion because 1 billion's a given. 3 billion could be a little bit fudging it. So I just was like, if I just say 1 billion, that's fine. 1 billion, 2 billion, red fish, blue fish. I think one of the cool things for me, so I was pre-med in undergrad and I really wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to heal. I wanted to help. I have my own background of medical issues. And so because of how much time I have spent in hospitals, I wanted to be a part of healing and helping other people who have to spend time in hospitals. So I'm pre-med in undergrad and I end up getting an internship through happenstance with a little known company at the time called Red Bull. And so this was 16, yeah, this was 16 years ago. And when I was 19 years old, I was still an undergrad. I was traveling with this job. I fell in love with this job. For the first time in my life, I was really good at something and
Mm,
I liked it. And I wasn't just good. I was like, if we can say this, better than other people. Like I had
yeah,
these
you
great
excelled.
ideas.
You excelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at 19 years old, a friend and I came up with a campaign for our market, and it was so popular and successful that they ended up at headquarters scaling the campaign to go national. And so at 19 years old, I created my first national marketing campaign with Red Bull. And I'm so grateful that my career started with Red Bull because back to being ostentatious and being unapologetic and innovative, like Red Bull really let me let my freak flag fly. I mean, I could
Wow.
do almost anything I wanted with that
Wow.
product and just run with it from a guerrilla marketing standpoint and see what stuck. And because there was so much unknown about the energy drink category, I was able to operate in a way that probably marketers for that company today wouldn't be able to operate. We know
Mhm.
that like maybe high schoolers don't need to be drinking Red Bull. I was spending a lot of time at high school campuses, full disclosure, and doing a lot of campaigns. No, like with the schools, like going to school dances and things like that, like with the school's blessing. Sometimes not with the school's blessing, but this was again, this was 16 years ago, so slightly different world. People didn't know what energy drink was. When I started working with Red Bull, they only had two flavors, two sizes. That's it. Like that was it. They only had four SKUs, and now they have dozens, if not over a
Wow.
hundred.
Wow.
So it's really grown. And so I was with that company for 3 years, launched one of their first ever own innovations. And it really just ignited a spark in me. This idea that I can tap into what people need and when is how I've been able to create effective marketing campaigns
Wow.
that create incremental business for my clients by expanding their target base. So if you have a company, right, and you're like, well, my target client is so and so, right, and you make an
Mhm.
avatar, I'm going to challenge it and say, well, I'd actually say that you're completely letting go of this target consumer that needs your product as well. And we
Wow.
can create an authentic campaign to appeal to this demographic. And so that's where I've been able to. So at Red Bull, it started with the Hispanic demographic. I was creating Spanish related campaigns and stuff like that. That was resonant because my mother was born in Mexico and I'm Latina and I speak Spanish. So again, I can authentically speak to the Hispanic consumer
Right.
because I'm a
Right.
Hispanic consumer. My
Right.
mother's Hispanic. And so, or, Latina, Mexican. And so, yeah, just being able to create incrementality. And then from there, I've worked with several Fortune 500 companies, building brands,
Wow.
building campaigns, advertisements, and growing new brands, working with celebrity backed brands. And giving sometimes people a dose of reality of like the limitations on their brands and helping companies who are trying to develop their exit strategies. So it's been really exciting and fun. Um, And yeah, so it is closer to $3 billion, but I just say a billion because I feel like that's more digestible and less
Well,
shocking.
and that's plenty. I mean, when we think in terms of a billion, it's like, wow. I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive. Very impressive. Well, good for you. I mean, you're a young woman. You've already had known a lot of success through, like you say, happenstance. It just kind of you sort of fell into it in a way and tapped into this thing that you didn't even know you were good at. And that's, you've been able to harness that and do all these other things that have been obviously very remarkable. Good for you. I'm glad we went back to that. I'm glad we went back to
Oh,
that because
thank you.
yeah, because obviously that's a very intriguing truth. It was true. All right. So going back to a piece of wisdom you keep handy.
Mm. I have so many. I have a lot of isms and idioms, and I think one of the biggest amazing things is when someone quotes myself to myself. I know that sounds so incredibly
Oh,
narcissistic and
no, it's
egotistical.
beautiful. It's confirming, affirming, validating, all that good stuff.
Yeah, when I offer a piece of wisdom to someone that they regurgitate, it really does make me feel like, okay, my voice needs to be heard. That's why I was given apparently such a big one. But so gosh, there's so many pieces of wisdom. I think what really is my North Star and what leads me and is again possibly bleak if you decide to look at it that way,
Hmm,
is that I have a hyper awareness that I am going to die, that you are going to die. I have a hyper awareness that every minute is fleeting and that we have to make the most of it. I don't know if I'm ever going to sit down and have a beautiful conversation with you like this again. So I'm going to give it my all.
right.
And that is really bleak because I'm a
Oh,
Scorpio, so I'm all about the death. Like I could talk about death all day long. It's what I'm always thinking about in the sense of not trying not to come from a fearful standpoint, but from an understanding that with death, one comes rebirth. So accepting of death, but then also just knowing that we are on finite resources, our
mhm,
time, our youth, our health. I promise you, they will not be here in 500 years. And
right,
so, with knowing that we are on a finite timeline, like if someone's being really grumpy in traffic, why would I waste what precious moment I have in traffic angry at that person? I'm going to send them love and light and hope that wherever they're rushing to, they get there safely.
right.
Because my
Oh,
time and energy are finite, and I'm not going to let someone else's bad behavior in a brief moment impact my energy and mode.
hmm. Wow. Well, you have just really garnered a lot of wisdom in your years, and you're living them. So it's more than just, because we can all talk a wise kind of good game, but how does it manifest itself within your life? And clearly you are living the things that you believe, which to me is, there's nothing more gorgeous than that, right?
Yeah,
Back
I
to that authentic word, back to
mean
authentic.
it all stems from, again, back to what I was saying about my parents, right? There's always a duality, there's always a caveat, there's always going to be like the downside. It stems from the fact that I've had serious health issues. I
Mhm.
have contemplated about my mortality absolutely more than most people my age. I have been under the knife more than anybody I know. I don't know anybody who's had the cancer scares. I've prayerfully never had cancer to this day. Thank you so much. Grateful for that to the universe. But I've had several cancer scares. I've had issues. I've had several surgeries. I've had treatments. I've spent a lot of time. I have an oncologist, even though I've never had cancer because of my conditions. And so what that means is I spend a lot of time in treatment centers with people who are at the end of the road. I spend a lot of time with doctors who do give those final painful diagnoses. And I that's where I say I have a hyper awareness of the end. And I think sometimes we want to numb ourselves to that reality because it's so scary. And
Mhm.
then when death happens, inevitably it happens to all of us, not just through ourselves, but our loved ones. We
Right.
want to avoid it, put it in its place, celebrate their life and move on. And it's like, well, no, everything we do, we have to decide, like, is this building towards the legacy I want at the end of the road? And I
Right.
know what it's like to be lying in my own puddle of blood. I know what it's like to wish that I was dead because I was in so much pain.
Mm,
And so it's through a lot of pain that I've come onto this other side. I don't think it's something that comes through comfort or ease.
Oh, I completely believe that. Absolutely. I think that fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to view it, it's really in our pain and our suffering that we learn and yield our greatest lessons, wisdom, growth, all of those things seem to come through the struggle, like the butterfly coming out of, the chrysalis or whatever. I mean, it takes a lot of strength, and I'm sure it sure looks painful. It sure, maybe it's not, I don't know. But yeah, I do completely agree with what you're saying. We're doing a superpower series, and summer's coming. It's close. We've got the superhero movies. I'm sure I'm not really tracking them. I just happen to know that this is that time of year. So a couple kind of fun questions and then more into your superpower. Who is your favorite superhero and why?
Well, I've always been partial to Storm because I love white hair. I started going gray at 7. Again, which I
What?
which I think is just the universe's way of telling everyone that I'm wiser than everybody else. Yeah, I started going gray at 7. The same time I took that flight alone. Maybe there's a correlation there. But I always love Storm because she's got this copper skin and white hair. And so I used to dress like her. I dressed like her a lot when the movie, as I mentioned, came out. So I do love Storm. I will say when you talk about summer superhero movies, Wolverine and Deadpool are doing a collaboration movie. And
Right,
I'm very, very excited about that because they both have, like, Deadpool can't die. So he's not so much healing as much as he can't die. And Logan, the Wolverine, he regenerates. And so they both have this power of, we'll say, immortality. So sort of, Logan's not
right,
immortal, but he can heal himself.
right.
Deadpool cannot heal himself. He has to do the work to heal himself, but he doesn't die, no matter what he tries.
Okay. Right. Wow. Okay. And I am aware that you're right. As soon as you said that, I remember reading about that. Okay. What superpower would you want to have? I mean, if we're talking in the superpower, superhero genre, what superpower would you want to have?
Um, the power to heal others. So not exactly what Logan has with his regenerative powers where he's able to fix himself, but I would love the power of healing touch, to be able to touch someone's cancer away, heal an open wound, um maybe even, yeah, that's what I think that I would want to
That's
offer
fun.
someone.
I'm really enjoying this series already. It's been fun, because it's kind of light, but now we're, not going to go super deep, perhaps, or maybe we are. I don't know. What is your superpower? Because it's likely your passion. What's your superpower?
On the note of healing, I don't I won't say I have the power of healing touch, so to speak, but I am able to make people laugh and smile on their hardest of days. And I've been proven that
Mm,
time and time again, to the point where I was in a very serious situation a year ago. A client of mine was in a multi-million dollar lawsuit, and I had to be a witness, and it was just awful. I mean, just
mm,
all of it was awful. I'm watching people yell at each other. It was just a really ugly situation,
mm,
nothing like the television. Um, and when there's that much money on the line, where it was between a one well-known company and another well-known company. And I just thought to myself, there's so much tension if I can just make the people laugh. Like when I get up there and I have to give my testimony, if I can just make them laugh, it'll make me feel better. Not only did I get like the opposing counsel to laugh, I got the court reporter to laugh and the counsel of my client's counsel to laugh. And
Oh,
so I don't know how I was able to do that, like in a courtroom with like a judge and all that, like a very, if you've ever been in that circumstance, even for jury duty, like it's not laughs and giggles.
no.
But all I thought was, all I can say is the truth, right? Like what I saw, what I didn't see, what I signed, what I didn't sign, whatever. It was a very cut and dry situation for me. But I was like, if I can just break up the tension with some laughter. And so when they were asking me questions, I did add like a little bit of quips and I was able to make the court reporter laugh. And I feel like that's a gift to be able to cut the tension with humor.
Oh, cut the tension with humor. I love that. Um, because I was thinking, you like to spark joy. That kind of was another way I was thinking of putting what you were saying. Yeah, cut the tension with humor. That's really good. So in a way, humor in a way is your superpower. That's really beautiful. And then so you know it because you're in all these situations and you do it. That's how you know it, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so you have used it, I mean, even on this big stage, quote unquote, so to speak, in this court, in this trial, you were able to do that. Do you think everybody has a superpower?
Oh, absolutely. It's in your soul. Everybody. Everybody has a superpower. Every single human and soul. I mean, and it's unfortunate to go through life unaware of it. My hope would
Yes.
be that everybody finds their power, and it really should be our
Uh,
parents revealing it to us or trying to start to reveal it to us because you don't want your parents putting it on you. Like, you don't want
right.
your parents saying, "This is your gift and you will use it as such." But to just, to really give you this space to express it, fine tune it.
Yes.
And yeah, we all have superpowers. And again, back to what I was saying, that's why I think the dichotomy of the way that we are trying to create us versus them really does us a disservice because we
Mhm.
all have different gifts and desires and abilities and capabilities, and we are all beautiful. Overwhelmingly. I'm not gonna focus on the little minority. People wanna hyper focus and magnify the lack of beauty when there's so much more beauty that can be talked about and reported and understood, and in the small moments and in the big moments. And so, yeah, we all have beautiful special gifts. I'm Christian, and so in the Bible they talk about this explicitly. Like we all have gifts from the Holy Spirit.
Right, right.
And so, without getting, again, I don't want to impose my beliefs on anybody else, but for me, whenever I have a feeling and then it's affirmed through a textbook that's like thousands of years old, I'm like, okay, they're probably onto something there. I think so. So yeah, we all have
Right.
very special gifts. I think mine is more my voice, but for some people, it's the ability to shut up. That's an ability I don't have. But to be able to sit and listen like a therapist,
Oh, yeah.
that's a
Right,
power.
right.
That's a
Yeah.
superpower.
And then you were talking about parents giving kids sort of the space to express and to find their superpower. How would you suggest like an adult finds their superpower? Because I 100% think you're right that not everybody knows what their superpower is. I mean, seriously. And I just think, oh gosh, that is just heartbreaking to me that you don't know what your superpower is. So
So
how would you think people should
it
find what theirs is?
it's similar to the love languages. People don't really misunderstand the love languages and they quote it a lot and it drives me nuts because I'm like, you did not read Dr. Chapman's book, I can tell. So I'm not going to recap the love languages. What I will say is when someone like can't figure it out or they're like, no, all five are my languages. I'm like, no, let's reverse engineer this. Don't think about what you want. Don't think about what you're good at. Think about what you're bad at. Think about what you didn't get. So when you look at your parents, right, in terms of the love language, don't think about what they did that you liked. Think about that one thing your dad always did that really got under your skin. Think about that thing he did that really hurt you. Think about that thing your mom did or didn't do that really hurt you. That's your love language because the love language works both ways, right? Your need for physical touch means that if someone hits you, it's going to hurt you that much more deep because your love language has been weaponized against you.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, with a superpower, mine is the gift of gab, right? Gift of gab right over here. But what am I really bad at? I'm really bad at shutting up. That's not my strength. I put my foot in my mouth. When I think about my most painful, embarrassing moments, it's because I said the wrong thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you can reverse engineer it and not try to focus on where have I helped people, if you're overwhelmed at the idea of finding your power, find
Mm-hmm.
those times where you felt very disempowered.
Uh,
Find those moments where you felt very disenfranchised, where you knew that you could have done better and didn't. And you'll probably have a narrow focus on what your power is and how you were not being authentic and showing up with it.
Gosh, that's just brilliant. That's really just so well said and very practical because we can actually do this. We can look at this and reverse engineer it and spend some time really going through different scenarios and being able to better identify because I think there's really power in identifying things. I mean, I just was recently on a trip and I was talking about passion and purpose, and this woman came up to me a couple days later and she said, I've really been thinking about what you said. I don't know if I have a passion. And I thought, oh my goodness, please spend some time just trying to figure out what lights you up. I mean, like you said, this is finite. Us being here is finite. And I am a woman of faith as well. And I feel like God has given you all these gifts. Have you taken the time to open, receive, explore them? And how sad to reach the end and to not have done that with this abundance that you were given. So anyway, yeah, I'm right there with you. Is there anything you feel like we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to chat about at all?
Oh, no, I'm so grateful to be here and for you to allow me to share a little bit of my insights and I think I love what you're creating, this idea of we really should unabashedly love who we are. We were all made perfectly, truly, even through our flaws,
Yes.
perfectly, not perfect, perfectly made.
Yes.
And our flaws are so they're a part of the story and they fit together like puzzle pieces. I'm a terrible singer, but then that means that I appreciate other singers so much more because they have something that I don't. And I
Right.
think that we really are all puzzle pieces, and my voids are your strengths, and your strengths I mean, and my strengths might be your voids, and that's why
Right.
we were made to come together and truly show up in our integrity. I think people really confuse the meaning of integrity. They think of it in the sense of like doing the right thing when no one's looking. Yeah, that's integrity, but I think integrity really comes down to that pit of your gut where you're so authentic that your structural integrity, like the integrity of a house, a dilapidated house easily can be blown by the wind, but a house with strong integrity can sustain any storm. And I think for us, our integrity is not just what we're doing in character, but it's knowing ourselves so well enough that any storm that comes, we can stay strong. But
Mm-hmm.
we waver when we're not living in our integrity and we're acting, trying to fit in, or we're trying to be
Oh,
cool, or we're
yeah.
trying to be something we're not,
Right.
and we're inauthentic and we're trying too hard. And that's when our integrity really wavers, and that's when we make mistakes. I
Right.
believe that when you're in your integrity, as I strive to be, and when you're fully authentic, you don't have to worry about being popular or something aging well or being canceled. Like I'm like, okay, if you guys want to cancel me for loving Jesus, then all right, that it is what it is. I'm not going to denounce him just cuz y'all say it's not cool right now. Like
Right.
whatever it is, I just think that we all need to be in our integrity. And so, yes, unabashed you is really such a special place, and I'm just so grateful to
Yeah.
have a small thumbprint in it.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's just beautiful. I just appreciate who you are and getting to explore and discover part of who you are and sharing this conversation with me today. I feel very privileged. I feel very privileged.
Oh, thank you. And there's a lot more wisdom in my book that I wrote. It's a bestseller
Oh,
and it came out.
wonderful. What's it
Yeah,
called?
I wrote a book. It's called High Tolerance. And it's a little bit of a pun because it talks about my career working with a bunch of alcoholic beverage brands. So, high tolerance for drinking, but then also high tolerance for pain and setbacks and frustrations and high
Mm,
tolerance for work ethic and all of that. So it's a little bit of a pun. I felt very clever when I came up with it. But yeah, it's a book called High Tolerance, and it offers some of my perspective in my quote young 30 plus years of life of things that I've seen, things I've experienced, and what I'm hoping to build in the world moving forward.
that's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that very much. I'll be sure and include all that in the show notes, as they say. Thank you, Ella.